Hello, it's Emma Jo here from Lavinia Stamps, and in this video I'm going to be showing you all the little bits that we're going to make for Lavinia Tours 11 Part 1. So enough chat from me, let's crack on. Come with me and let me show you how it's done. Okay, so let's get started with prepping our paper. For this, you're going to need your large Lavinia journal. I'm using a smooth one, but it's up to you which one you want to use, and some black A4 card. So as you can see, I have more or less ripped it down the middle and given it a lovely squiggly edge, because for what we're doing, it's far more interesting to have a bit of variation in your line. If I did it just as a straight line, it just wouldn't be as interesting, putting it bluntly. So trim it and fit it to your page. Now you can see I'm literally tucking it into the crease, folding it with my nail and cutting it appropriately, and make it so that it looks like it's one line. Now you can see here I've got some A4 watercolor card that I'm cutting with my Sizzix scissors, and that will go underneath the black card. Now I'm using watercolor card because it will give us a lovely subtle, slightly more subtle effect with the products we're using. And that was me just showing you that I really am using the Lavinia Stamps watercolor card. There we go. So now we're going to build a wall. So take your Brick Stencil, some gesso and nature's spatula, your finger, pop some on your craft mat and just gently apply. Now to get a whiter area, you just have to keep applying in layers really, and this will give us a rather lovely brick wall effect. And it's a fab way of still applying colour to a black background. And I'm just popping some more gesso on my finger and running it along the bottom ripped edge. Yeah? Try and measure up your bricks from one side to the other so that we get some sort of flow going through from one page to the other page. There you go. And dry it off with your heat gun. Now you can see I had some gesso left. I'm just popping it in a little tub to use later. Stamping. Right, for this we have Star, some DL multifarious card, and I've inked her up in VersaFine Clair Nocturne and just stamped her. And here we go. Ripping again. Now, you know, if ripping isn't for you, you can, or you've just cut. Do what makes you comfortable. After all, this is your journal. Okay, Forest Temple stamp, inked up in VersaFine Clair Nocturne, and just stamped onto some multifarious. There we go, and rip out a sort of shape that gives us enough of an edge that we could do something with it. I know that's a little bit vague, but you'll understand why later. And you can see that I'm sort of picking holes in the side, almost like they could be bricks, do you think? There we go. Let's do some fairy lights now. So make a rough line on your watercolor card to give you an idea of where things are going above it, and using your mini fairy lantern, ink it up in VersaFine Clair Nocturne and stamp it, and you can see it should just fit beautifully underneath your black wall. So now that we know what's happening, let's stick it into the journal. Oh, using bippity boppity glue. There we go. And do the same on the other side as well. I think that brick wall looks fab. Okay, let's add some colour. So I'm using my gem colours and a mop brush size 3, and I'm just basically putting some wet stuff down on that bottom bit of the journal underneath the fairy lights. It's only a very light wash. Doesn't need to be particularly pretty. Just try and leave a little bit of space around the fairy lanterns. And now I'm using Dinkles Periwinkle in a needle tip bottle, which I think are great. And Dinkles Pink, add a bit more colour. We're going for a rainbow feel along this floor. Okay, and of course Dinkles Yellow. Now I find with needle tip bottles, it allows you more control over where colours are going. So now using my Ranger Heat tool, I'm just going to give that a little helping hand to dry off, using my mop brush to just take some of that colour around the fairy lanterns. And if there's a little bit left over, don't worry, you can just blot that away. Add a little bit more yellow to perk it up a bit. And dry that off again. Now taking your stencil brush size 9 and some Elements Ink Blue Atoll, start at the bottom and work your way up, especially into those bits that look like they haven't got any colour, because that just lifts the rest of the colour to be rather zingy. Do love this. Love the way the colours react together. Gem coloured fairy lights. Now the clue is in the title. I'm using a masking fluid brush because for me this is just the right brush for this. And the Kuretake gem colours to colour in my fairy lanterns. Now I'm going to start with one coat and then go back for a second layer and add a couple of colours to each fairy lantern, and that sort of makes them pop. But in a very vintage, they pop in a very vintage, subtle way. By being understated, they're still in the colour scheme. They're still there, but they're not taking centre stage, which I rather like. So you can see there, I think it's the purple. I've added the red to that just to give it a bit of a lift. There we go. Let's make some unicorns. This is the most bizarre thing to say, but hey ho. On your black A4 card, ink up your Zuri stamp with Versamark, because these are going to be embossed, and just stamp them down. Now, we're going to be making 3 of these, but this is just the first one to give you an idea of how we do it. Using Wow embossing powder, white opaque regular, just cover your unicorn so that you get all of the stamp in your embossing powder. Tap off any excess, pour the remains on your leftover paper, and heat up the embossing powder. As I said, we're making 3. I love this shot because you can actually see it turning. Fabulous. There we go. And now I'm just going to rip that unicorn out of the way and show you what we do with all 3 of them. Just ripping around the outside, because the tendency with something white is it will disappear. So I'm trying to give it a little bit of a background, or if you like, a black outline, without drawing. So I'm just ripping around it. Super. Now this is the other 2. And for all of them, I'm going to be using Glittery Posca Pens, yellow, pink, blue and green, to do a sort of candy floss rainbow effect. So you colour it in and you might think, oh, this isn't doing very well. Smudge it and the colour will stain your embossing powder, which is rather lovely and very, very fairy tale like. Now I'm deliberately not making each unicorn exactly the same. I'm trying to apply the colour in different ways for each unicorn. If you were doing something with a rainbow, this would be a lovely effect to use for anything that's caught in the rainbow. There's that blue, little bit smudge. Job's a good one. There we go, and we've got 3 rainbow unicorns. Rather effective, I think. Fixing the door. So, taking your A4 black card. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4.5, is it? Squares across. And cut it to size. We're going to attach that door to it now using our Bippity Boppity. Now I'm just going round the outside edges with it. A couple of squiggles in the middle. It's cracking glue, that. And stick it down. Take your brick stencil again, and remember that leftover gesso? There we go. Going to get used. We're going to extend our wall, because this will be so seamless, nobody will know it's there. So pay particular attention around where the door and the wall, the black card, meet, because it will look like a seamless transition is what I'm trying to say. Couldn't think of the words. So we're just building up our wall. Remember how we did it before? Little dabs here, there and everywhere. And if you want it to be slightly more textured, add more layers of it. I'm taking that stencil further down now and around the door. There we go. Let's add some Posca. So this is my glittery yellow Posca pen, and I'm just going around the outside of all the fairy lights to give them a little bit of light. I know the colour is not necessarily always yellow, but there's just something quite nice about having one colour shining out of them in this piece, because I don't want it to get far too busy. I mean, it's already going to be busy with colour in the bottom half by the time we've finished. So just keeping it to one colour shining out of the lanterns will help ease some of that. There we go. Splatter. Always good to have a bit of splatter. So we're just doing that above the wall. There you go, you can see that splattering onto the wall and across the coloured floor. And let's add our characters. So that's where Star's going to go by the looks of it. And I'm just ripping her a little bit closer to the stamped image, because I don't really want her to be so full of white. So I'm trying to get it just as close as I can without damaging her. Now, the question is, what am I going to do with my unicorns? I mean, that's a question I have every day. So using my Bippity Boppity glue, just go around the outside of the shape and pop them down. Now, what I would say to you is we don't have to have all of every unicorn visible, because that would just be a little bit too much. So we've got one with his bottom hanging off the edge of the page. and one a little bit further forward, and then once we put that one in, you won't be able to see the legs or the bottom of the other two, but that doesn't matter. Not every single bit has to be visible. So obviously once you've stuck them down, trim them. Here we go, star. So again, I'm using the same colours I used on the floor of the tunnel, and I'm blotting that colour down, and we just build the colour up as we go. So that was Dinkles yellow, the first one, and this is now Dinkles pink. And again, blot, and this is periwinkle, slightly darker colour as it goes on. But you know what's quite nice about this is Star is lighting the way for these mice, but she is obviously a magical being. So just keep adding your colours until you're happy with them. But remember, yellow lifts it. Now with your Ranger heat tool, give a quick blast. And blot any excess colour. And make sure to dry out the back as well. So now I have my Elements Ink Sundance that I'm just covering Star with completely by the looks of it, and adding some accents with my Posca pen. So that's my aqua green, rather lovely colour. And all those little pockets of pattern, I'm using my aqua green to just go in and highlight, because we don't want them to get lost in this barrage of colour, if you like. I always find when you're given a stamp that you can colour in effect, it's easy to disappear into a zone. So this is the Kuretake Clean Colour Real Brush Pens, and this one is pink. And I'm just adding to those details again. And the next colour I'm going to use is yellow. So Star, by colouring her in yellow, we're making her this little ball of light. So now I'm adding some of the gem colours to her lantern in particular. And to little bits of her skirt as accents. So lots of extra little touches of colour here, there and everywhere. So let's add some finishing touches now. Using your bippity boppity glue, let's stick Star down. There she goes. And that is where that extra little bit of page is going. Now you can see I'm having to trim it a little. So I've just found out where the edge of the page is and creased it, and now I'm going to cut it to size. Okay. Now you should have made a flap behind that so that you can glue it easily and it will open. So now I've got some DL Multifarious, similar size to this black piece of card, and I've drawn, excuse me, around the edge of that black card, and I'm making a rather torn shape to fit within inside that. Now that, my friends, is going to be for the story, but I don't believe that's going to be for this part of Make-A-Wish. That will be part 2. Now what I'm going to do here is cut out some rather lovely shapes so that the wall behind starts to show through. And by doing this, it gives it, it makes it seamless. If you sort of cut into that shape, following the lines of some of the bricks, can you see what I'm doing? Just creating a wiggly line like that, and hoping to goodness that I haven't gone anywhere near the text. So bear that in mind when you're cutting. And that, my friends, is the end of part 1. You did it. Well done. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that. There's lots of embossing. I loved the gesso work for the wall. Didn't you? Can't wait to see how we're going to put it all together. Anyway, enough chat from me. Thank you so much for coming along today. I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and I hope that you're looking forward to part 2 of Lavinia Tours 11 Make-A-Wish. Anyway, if you've got any questions you'd like to leave, please do pop them in the post below, and I will do my best to get back in touch with you as soon as I can. But in the meantime, you take care and have fun crafting, yeah? Bye.